All
All right, looks like we're live.
Oh, just in time.
Good evening, everyone. This is a regularly scheduled city council workshop. Today is Monday, October 27th. It's 5:15. Around the table, we have Councilor Tremble, Councilor Leonard, Councilor Beck, Councilor Fish, Councilor Hawes, Councilor Dean, and myself, Councilor Fournier.
Wayne.
Councilor Mallard was gonna be on Zoom.
He wants I think he said he had the link. When it's on there, yeah, he went to that appointment. He might be late.
There's people.
Is he gonna be at the regular meeting?
Zoom.
Or are you gonna do the whole thing?
And that may be what he's gonna do is Zoom on the regular meeting, not this. I don't know. Well, it says iPad Council Mallard. Does that say Councilor Mallard?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's up there. He's still sick. Yes. Had a cold. Yes, they wanted to do
We're just waiting to get the.
Yes, I think I'm unmuted.
Yes, you are unmuted. Welcome, Councilor Mallard.
Thank you.
All right. The agenda looks kind of light. City manager update. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Yes, he's on. Yep. I don't know if you need to hit that.
All right, so I have a few topics to run through. The first on my list was to give an update on the topic that you heard during the previous committee meeting on winter parking. So Steve Smith, Acting Director of Public Works, gave a little bit of an update on what the plan is for winter parking. And I think what we heard really clearly from everyone at the table is that you're very interested in making sure that the public understands what the requirements are when there's a parking ban, what's expected of them, what the consequences are, all of those important things to make sure folks' cars don't get towed away and they don't incur an expensive towing bill. So what we're planning to do is early in November, do a press release, put out a bunch of social media content, and also make several distributions to the opt-in listserv that the city hosts with information on all of those important topics in hopes that folks will know what to do and when once it starts snowing. And then after doing that in November, we'll do it all again once we have some indication that we're about to get that first storm that's going to require people to move their vehicles or risk getting towed. So hopefully this year that will mean that folks won't have any unexpected consequences when it does start snowing. The next item on my list is to give an update on warming centers. So the due date for the applications for that $60,000 in funding for warming centers was last Wednesday. And we received 2 applications for organizations that are interested in hosting those warming centers. We have a couple of follow-up questions out to them just to get clarification on some of the answers they gave about budgets and staffing plans, primarily because, as I think folks won't be surprised, that their budgets were in excess of the $60,000 that we allocated. And so we want to understand whether they already have funding or whether they need additional funding so that we understand the likelihood that those organizations will in fact open if we do allocate the $60,000 to them. Anne's team, her code team, is gonna visit those two organizations as well, just to make sure ahead of time before we do any allocation of money that the facilities that they've identified can in fact safely host a warming center for the winter. Both of the applicants requested the full $60,000. And so I think, I'm not asking today, but I think a decision may be asked at some point of, are we interested in funding them both? Given the landscape as it exists currently with warming shelters. One was proposing to host 70 and another was proposing to host 40. And so I think potentially funding one would give us just enough, you know, barely enough. Funding both would probably be much more comfortable for purposes of managing that population confidently through the cold weather. So again, not asking you to sort of vote and approve that, you know, today, but wanted to at least message to you that that's one conversation that's happening, so you could start thinking about whether that's something that you're interested in, for those of you that will be here when it comes time to make that decision.
Questions? Yeah. Counselor Mallard?
Well, my only question is, I couldn't hear a thing anyone said. So I will have to listen to the recording. I can hear mumbling, but that's about it. The microphone system still isn't working well.
Yes, I can hear it through your microphone.
Right, can you hear me now?
I can hear you much better now.
Counselor, I'll just repeat quickly. I'll summarize what I said.
No, that's fine. I can listen
Okay.
to the recording.
Okay, sorry about that.
Go ahead.
Any questions or thoughts on that?
Counselor Dean.
Are the two applicants known in the city, or are these new applicants that are interested?
These are two applicants that are existing in the city currently, already providing services to the population that would be served by a warming center.
Counselor Trumbull.
You said I don't think I'll be making a decision on this, but what was this batch of money we're funding this, the 60,000, where's that coming from?
So we received a one-time allocation of additional general assistance funding.
And I mean, I think it would be great if we could fund them both, but it's up to you guys to figure out where the money's coming from.
Counselor Fish.
If we fund them both, would that be additional money beyond the 60,000?
Yes, most likely. They've each requested the full $60,000 allocation. We received, gosh, I believe it was 186,000 in the additional GA allocation. So were we make a recommendation that we fund them both, I would anticipate making the recommendation that the funding also come from that GA funding.
Anything else? Good.
Next on my list is the federal shutdown and specifically SNAP. There's been a good amount of concerning reporting about SNAP benefit recipients not receiving benefits for the month of November. I checked an hour or so ago and there weren't any positive developments. So we've been sort of exploring what we might do as a city to fill that gap. Finally, the idea that folks in our communities would go hungry is concerning, especially to our public health folks. Jen Gunnerman has been exploring the ways that we can use general assistance money to provide food benefits to SNAP recipients who don't get their benefits in November. GA can be used to provide food benefits, and public health is able to access information about who currently is authorized to receive SNAP. So from an administrative standpoint, it would be very easy to identify and confirm who those impacted individuals and families are. So we're still ironing out the details, but we're pretty confident that the city in emergency situations can do some amount of relief. I think what is really interesting about all the reporting on SNAP, what you hear is, yes, all of these organizations, food banks, they're doing great work, but it's just a drop in the bucket compared to what folks receive in money benefits to purchase food. And so we'll do the same. We'll add our voice to that chorus to help folks. But it certainly isn't similar in scope to the actual benefit that folks will be losing out on. It's my understanding that members of the Maine delegation are working the issue at the federal level. And it's also my understanding that conversations are being had with the governor's office about some sort of stopgap funding that might be more comprehensive than what each municipality is able to do on an individual level. And so I was interested in knowing whether the folks at this table were interested in sending communications to the federal delegation as well as the governor's office supporting those resolutions.
Councilor Henry.
I would say yes to that, but in addition, and I know I'm just one voice here, we also need to tell them what our actions are, what we are doing, what we are being forced to do because of the lives that are at stake from this deplorable decision that's happening at the federal level. I would, and this might be another topic later on, but our drop in the bucket that we want to do for a strategy to help those that need our assistance. We need to consider having this being a permanent program so that if this government is ever hijacked again by a regime that wants to attack and starve our citizens, that we already have something in place that's built that we can activate immediately in the future. Obviously, we can't do anything immediate right now. We need to build that. But this goes to show that I don't see this problem going away anytime soon. In fact, I foresee that's probably going to happen again and again and again and again over the next 3 years. So I would highly recommend that we create whatever program it is, it be pretty much permanent.
Councilor Trumbull.
We just had in communication we have with whether it's the senators and the governor that we make the point that the Department of Agriculture has plenty of money. They have funds set aside for just such a circumstance, and they've been told not to use those funds. So it's very unfortunate that hungry children are being used as pawns in this situation because there's plenty of money in the Department of Agriculture to fund this. It's for just such a case as this.
The other thing that we're doing is compiling an updated list of all of the food bank and other meal resources to put up on the website and push out to socials and to have in Jen Gunnerman's office to hand out to people who do come in and needing assistance.
Councilor Beck.
I would say too, is that any kind of coordination we can do with the school department to get word home to, kids bring home flyers is the first thing I see. So, if we can have the schools, help put out word.
Smart.
I saw something with it. Schools are doing some communication.
The other thing that's happening is Jen Gunnerman and I both participate in a group of local health. Obviously, I'm not a local health expert, Jen is, but I participate. And they're doing some coordination amongst themselves in the hospitals, and among other nonprofits to try to explore ways that they can take resources and really target them at the food banks. Because it was actually in a meeting this morning, the discussion was, the food banks are truly the most efficient at purchasing the most food for $1 because they have those established relationships. And so the conversation was don't have everyone try to do their little piece. Everyone needs to sort of flood the food banks with resources. And so Jen and I were participating in that conversation. And it sounded like other organizations who have money to share will be helping as well.
Great, thank you.
I wanted to give a bit of an update on the work of the opioid advisory committee. Feel welcome to jump in if I miss things. So the opioid advisory committee has been meeting basically every other week since I started. I think I got to sit in on the first meeting. And the result of that work is that they have decided to administer a grant application process to inform the recommendations that the committee will make to council to use that money, very similar to what the county is doing. And that grant application went public last Monday and is due December 1st. To date, the city has received just under $1.3 million in opioid settlement funds. And after the allocation to public health for intensive case management, as well as a very small amount of money was authorized to use for needle cleanup, there's approximately an additional $650,000 available currently. And so that's sort of the maximum amount that we will recommend be spent. They're not making recommendations as to future amounts. One, because those amounts are uncertain at this point, they're just estimates, but also because they sort of chatted through the needs may change over time. And so it doesn't necessarily make sense to decide today how to spend that money in the future. Like I said, the due date for the grant applications is December 1st. The committee will review and evaluate them and then make a recommendation to council.
Does that balance of $650, does that include any interest that's been earned on the money, or is that separate account?
I don't believe it does. I've just been, the calculation I performed with finance did not include interest earned. It was just
I think it was always the intent to roll the interest into those funds.
Okay. So maybe that number will go up a little bit if there's interest earned.
Councilor Beck?
Are we gonna have to extend the term of this board? Because if the deadline is December 1st, well, December 31st, when they're supposed to be disbanded, is that gonna be enough time?
Yeah. I think it will be close. I think they're pretty motivated to act quickly and make recommendations quickly. We may need to think about a month. I think in that same breath, we should also think about what their role is going forward more comprehensively. Whether we want to continue with an advisory committee or something different. I don't know what that might be. But the amount of money that we're receiving in the remaining 10 or so years is, I mean, it varies, but it's around $150,000 to $200,000 a year. And so I think the question will be, is that a good use of a committee to make decisions on spending what is a relatively much smaller amount of money? Or is there something that council wants to do to make those decisions? I haven't totally fleshed out what I might recommend there, but I think it's an important conversation to have because it's 8 or 9 people.
One thing about the committee, from the start, they've been very vigilant about transparency and staying open, being very careful that they're not crossing any lines of conflict of interest when applications or names are brought up. As a matter of fact, we just had the city solicitor come and speak about, again, conflict of interest and different ways to look at that so that they feel comfortable when they have to recuse and when they just don't have to worry about it. So I think the committee has been, I think they're hoping that they will have a role somewhere at the end of this year. And they are in conversations as well about smaller projects and how would we do that? Do we use the same grant process? Is that necessary to go through that for that amount of money? So they are thinking about it for sure. They've done good work so far.
One important aspect that I didn't mention is the committee is very committed to working with the county as part of the grant application review process to make sure that, you know, if we're funding a project that needs 100,000 and we're only giving them 50, you know, coordinating to see, okay, did they apply to Penobscot County? Are they gonna fund the other portion? If not, where else is the money gonna come from? So that we're being thoughtful and effective in how that money gets deployed.
We're looking at having them come back potentially next meeting, maybe, or the one after. Depends on what their schedules are with the change in personnel and everything over there, so. But
Regarding what the future of the opioid committee is, especially since over the course of the next 10 years, we're going to get small increment amounts of settlement funds coming in. We might actually want to approach the commissioners for Penobscot County to see if we want to maybe have a joint opioid commission so that both of our dollars can actually be used for similar projects overall. I think that would be a much better usage of money overall, and that also gives both committees the ability to form into something that also creates a good working relationship with the commissioners and the city.
something we can talk to them about.
Yeah.
Next item on my list was committee meetings for next week. Because the committee meeting, council meeting schedule will straddle two councils. Most likely, unless something really urgent and emergent comes up between now and Friday. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen. I don't think we need anything else. I would anticipate that those committee meetings on Monday will be canceled. To avoid the scenario where a committee is voting on something that 3 new councilors don't have the opportunity to ask questions about. And it's working out naturally that there's nothing today that I'm aware of that is really gonna get hung up by waiting.
Great, Councilor Trumbull.
Yeah, something critical that comes up like finance. I think in the past, they just maybe have a special finance meeting the night of the council,
Okay.
so.
Perfect.
I don't even know, I don't remember it happening.
And then the last item on my list is orientation dates. So I'll send out an email with this tomorrow, so don't worry about jotting everything down. But I've tentatively calendared a council orientation session for Wednesday, November 19th at the Cross Insurance Center. And then I've also tentatively calendared a council priority setting session for the evening of Wednesday, December 10th at the airport. And my hope was that Jose could give a tour of the airport for everyone and talk about their operations and how it's going, and maybe, you know, talk through in real space some of the changes that are happening there so that they can be, you know, more visible and vibrant. And I think he's pretty excited to do that for you. So a tour and then priority setting. But if you know that those dates aren't going to work for you for some really important reason, please let me know. Because I certainly don't want to be in a situation where half the council knows that they can't attend the date that got selected. So I will do my best to rejigger dates if that does not work. And then I also wanted to open it up to this group, if there's anything that you would like to see for either council orientation or the priority setting session. I think all of you have sat through at least one, if not more, of those. I'm very happy to hear feedback or thoughts on how to do those effectively, especially for 3 new counselors who are gonna come in maybe not knowing nearly as much as the folks at this table.
Thoughts, questions, comments? The only thing I'd add, those dates went out to potential
Mhm.
counselors, so
They
you'll
did.
be sending that out.
Yes, the dates did go out to all of the 8 or 9 candidates for council. And I'll also be reaching out to them on the morning of November 5th, so long as we have a final answer, just to have each of the successful candidates in to talk through what Monday is gonna look like for them. I could envision being very nervous and unsettled to have been elected on the 5th and then 5 days later you're at a council meeting. So I'll meet with each of them and hopefully answer any questions. I see Councilor Fish nodding. So I will do that as well in that first week once the election happens.
Super. Other thoughts?
I'll probably have some in the future, but I'll provide some feedback on
Sure.
those 2 meetings.
Might be easier if we sent
Yeah.
ideas along.
All right. That's all I have.
That's it?
That's all I have.
All right,
Sandwiches and
seeing nothing else, adjourned. See you at 7.
I'll go open up the other room. There's